Learning Emotional Intelligence at the EQ Academy. Welcome back. My name is Markus Freudenmann. And today we look at learning, understanding, comprehension, becoming an expert in a field. And it's a subject that I really appreciate. And you can see this map behind me, which is really fascinating. It's from the Integro Leadership University that has put a lot of knowledge and effort into this diagram, which they call the passion pyramid, that shows our evolution in our mind, our thinking capacity. And it really starts very simple out. As soon as you have a certain knowledge in a certain field, you gain respect in that field. And that can be a hobby, a passion, something that you just excited about, but as soon as you achieve respect, and that can then grow, to learn and grow in a field, in an environment, to apply it, and then to be an insider, to be in a company, in a group, in a team, to develop something, and then you bring that to meaningful work, you translate that into something, into a solution, and then you hit the winning team, which is then really having that big breakthrough. As you can see, let's get thinner up on top. We have a broad mass of people who don't really like to think. And I always have to be very careful that I'm not judgmental in this field. But if we try to show the opposite of not thinking, then it's the consume, it's that TV, it's that entertainment, it's that browsing of the mind, showering information all the time, that there is no time for creativity. There is no time for individualized thinking. We are shown what we have to think. We're educated what to think, and you can see that. The evolution of blind acceptance, it really reduces us to sheeple. And we use that word at the EQ Academy quite regularly because it's clarifying that we don't want to be one of those sheep that line up and do what everybody else does, that we learn in the same way, select the right answer, pre-selected answers, and then we get better. If we join the world as it's supposed to be, don't speak up, don't think differently, do as you're told to, well, that's a concept that doesn't lead to leadership. It leads to sheepleship. And that's exactly what we try to avoid with emotional intelligence. And I'll share some insights on how to do that with you. Now, a lot of people, when I say, what is your expertise? They come, I'm not an expert in anything. But then you meet them, you talk to them, and you realize they have actually great knowledge in different fields. A friend of mine, he's read, and that's probably why I use it several times, he's read 2 million magazines on sailing boats. He knows them all, who builds which, what age they're built, what date, what kind of wood they've been used, what brass, how it's polished, everything. He's a top expert. He doesn't have an expertise. He doesn't have a sign at the door, but he knows so much about the subject that he is asked for advice. And I know several people who ask him when they buy a boat whether he can help them to find and that they are not cheated or, taken advantage of their incompetence in that field. He has the competence, and that's something that really stands out. So it doesn't matter what you are passionate about. Another friend of mine, he has a garage and old-timers. He knows all about old-timers and when and what they are. He calls it his man cave. It actually looks more like a living room with carpets and everything, and there is all his cars and polished, and he has his tiny little corner where he screws and polishes, but he's knowledgeable and an expert in that field. And that's something that is instilled in very early age. It's something that you have probably a hard time to learn if you haven't learned it from childhood on. And that's what Einstein really proclaimed as one of the biggest problems. It's a miracle that curiosity and creativity survive formal education. And that really is, we're trained to tick the right box, answer what we're told to, think in patterns, think as we are told to, and believe the things that we're told. Whether that's TV or marketing or advertising, believe it and then buy it, and that's the perfect way. And that creates this sheeple society that we have today. And to break that pattern, to get out of that, you need to start questioning the world, questioning what you're sold or what you're taught, and create and start thinking outside the box. And that is something that you learn in childhood, especially if you are not entertained. And this is one of the big lessons that we can take straight into adulthood too, that we use in all corporate trainings. The problem that we have is too much overload of information. You are not able to think creatively. You're not able to concentrate. You're actually just following through with all the entertainments, whether that's Facebook or Twitter or emails or everything, and never ever find that quiet space. We have a left and right brain, and the right brain is intellectual thinking, formulating, accumulating knowledge and everything, and it's really, really active, but that's where we don't make decisions. That's where we don't have any influence on the change of our life. Whereas if we go into the left brain, that's where we have intuition, inspiration, dreams, ideas, peace and harmony. It's actually the place of recreation, and that's the place that we want to get to when we think about a problem or find a solution. And that's why you will find every successful leader in this world not run around and do things to solve a problem. They shut the door. If you call some of the top authors and you want an autograph or you want an appointment, an interview with them, they tell you, right now I'm in closure. I have no visitors, no attendance until I have the deadline finished with my book. And they close off their phone, their email, they put filters in front of them so that they can withdraw into that silence, into that creative space. That's why I'm sometimes out there and answer emails and everything when I'm outside my creative space and follow up. But as soon as I create a project, I'm not even turning on any internet. I close my doors. This is my space, creative space. And when you learn to have that, when you learn to handle those areas, then all of a sudden you can very automatically, just by closing the door, just by turning off your internet, fall into that mindfulness, focused attention. I focus my attention towards a problem or towards something that I would like to achieve. Now you can see here this image. That's like a muscle that you need to train if you've never learned that. If you're all over the show and you're here and there and Facebook and then, like we have that problem that people right in the middle of conversation answer an email or write back or text back and forth. That's it. There is no focused attention onto what they do. Now, none of the top leaders, none of the people that are successful in life, that have leading positions, will do that. They have very dedicated, focused concentration on you right now. We have half an hour. I give you my total attention and then I'm off. I have something else to do. And then they focus their attention on that. And that's training. That's something that we need to learn. And if you haven't learned it so far, well, there is many little exercises and we use them at the EQ Academy before we start a process of creation, before we build something, whether that's the website or protocol or product or whatever you do. You bring yourself into the space where you're out of your right brain into the left brain and you can start working with inspiration and with intuition and with that whole flow of energy that we need to overcome patterns. And when I say overcome patterns, it really has to do with our lifestyle choices, the way we do things all the day, the way we see things all the time. If you have a preconceived pattern that's bad or that's good, then you will not alter that. You will not change. You will not find a solution. You need to challenge your beliefs. And usually that starts, and I come from that medical background with my education. It starts with cleaning up a toxic mind. And that's not just done with meditation. I know all the psychologists will say it starts in the mind. All toxicologists will say it starts with detoxification. All nutritionists will say it starts with nutrition and with supplements. And I guess they are all right. And that's why we list them all, because toxins, really heavy burden. If you have a food sensitivity or over allergy to toxins, then that will slow your brain down and will stop you from actually achieving a clear mind. If you have heavy metal poisoning, those of you who know what mercury can do to your brain, it just blocks all thinking. You can even lose your balance. Your whole mind is foggy. Deficiencies, if you have B12 deficiencies, if you have any kind of neurotransmitter that are lacking, you can't think. So inflammation will cause a lot of that, and hormone problems. So cleaning up the physical side and really bringing all that back into perspective is a bonus that I add, because, well, we need to have that in order to think clearly. And it's one of the elements that sometimes gives massive relief, because when brain fog goes, all of a sudden you can concentrate and then you can follow through on your projects. Now, one of the transformations of thought that we use at the EQ Academy, and which is probably the most fundamental element of emotional intelligence, is to convert anything that we perceive as a problem into an opportunity. And it sounds good, right? It's very simple. But think about, you wouldn't have a problem. Life would be pretty boring. There would be no need for solutions. Then you would need to just run around and entertain yourself and browse with TV and everything. And that's what sheeple do. They probably don't see as many problems as an intellectual, interested, open-minded person does. They see a problem, and then that inspires them to think and learn how to do it. How do we get to the moon? Or how do we see, astronomy? There's always clouds. So we can go into the desert. There is not as many clouds and we can see a lot better. But still there is the atmosphere, and that's pretty dusty. So how do we do that? Oh, we go out in space. Really easy, because then there is nothing in the way and we can see with our binoculars. Okay, but then we need to come up. You realize one problem that we have leads to many more that needs to find solutions. And as soon as we do that, and we start thinking and solving, that's actually how we evolve, how we move and evolve as human race. And I think it's a really nice concept to see problems not as something bad, but as an opportunity to grow and to reach that expertise in a field. Problems lead to new solutions and new inventions. We had that. And problem can make you extremely rich. It really is just that thought alone worth its weight in gold. If you have a certain expertise and you see a problem around you that people have, preferably many people have that problem, and you have a solution which is not too expensive, well, then you have the key to riches. But it requires you to be able to think outside the box, to learn how to solve the problem, to not take like a sheeple, oh, if I have that problem, I have that solution, because then you become a consumer. You come up with a new way, with a new idea, and that's actually what the Academy is trying to get you to really open the mind to a completely new way of thinking instead of being one of those sheeple that ticks the right box. And to do that, we approach projects very all-encompassing. I don't know if you know the story about the 5 blind men and the elephant. And the 5 blind men, they are told what an elephant looks like. And then the elephant leader says, just come forward and touch the elephant, and then you'll see. And one has the trunk and the leg and says, oh, an elephant is like a trunk. The other one comes along and says, oh, it's like a wiggly snake, and has the tail. The other one is like a brush. The other one like a mountain. They all describe the elephant in different ways because they see only a portion of the truth. What we do at the EQ Academy, as soon as we start opening the mind, we challenge our preconceived information. Instead of saying this is so, we look at different angles, different perspectives to challenge our beliefs, which then opens the mind to completely new thinking. See, when I started out to do the documentary on healing cancer, I followed like everybody else. This is secure and lateral is secure, and they are all prohibited and they would cure people. Well, that's what you're told, and that's what you believe, and that's what you think is right, and then you just proclaim the same idiocy. Until you find out that a lot of people take all that stuff and still die, and they spend fortunes on all of that. And then you realize that chiming in with the sheeple to do the same thing, the alternative sheeple, not the conventional, you just chose another party, is not the right thing to do as well. And then you dig deeper, you make yourself really understand the concept, and you realize that as long as you have deficiencies, it doesn't work. As long as you have high inflammation, this treatment doesn't work. And then you start realizing that there is a solution to everything, but you need to become an expert in that field. And that requires you to study and learn. And a lot of people are very scared of that because they think, I have a problem, I need a solution right now. That's the consumer mentality. If you want to join into the mental mentality, the thinking, emotional, intelligent community, it's changing that around and then working your way up. It's like this little fellow. You have the problem, and you always start with the problem. And I guess that's why a lot of people give up studying or learning, because it always starts with the problem. And then you slowly move your way up, and you test and you try and you check out. And then the more you do, the more you invest energy, time and money into this subject, the more you get into a level where then you have excluded all the things that don't work. And like I said, Emerson, 2000 ways of not how to build, knowing how to not build a light bulb is one way of learning. There is some jobs are a lot harder to get to, but if you have the passion for the subject to do all those lessons, well, then that's great. And how do we get to this passion? And this is something that a lot of people have never thought about. Passion deteriorates with every failure. It really is. When you never succeed, you are tempted to give up, right? It's a natural process. I can't find a solution, and you just stop. So instead of continue to learn, we need to have motivation for you to do so. And that's what we achieve by celebrating steps, success steps on the way. So when you are a young student, you go to school and you would start at the 12th class, would you give up? Yeah, probably. Way too overwhelming, way too complex. Can't know that. So there is no way to jump that. In the same way, if you want to climb Mount Everest, you wouldn't just train on your local village hill. You would actually climb always higher mountains and train yourself and get more and more expertise until you get there. In the same way is it with learning and having success. We celebrate all the little achievements on the way, and we actually do this very consciously. If I say, okay, like here in this chart, the program was the first thing. And I had 7 chapters to finish. All 7 chapters needed to be all full and done. So after every chapter, I celebrated, and I do what I like to do. I go for the beach, I go for a walk, I go paddling and swimming, and I take those 1-2 days off to really stress out and bring myself back into space. And then I continue the next. So celebrating each achievement is something that when you do, you get used to feeling good about reaching those individual steps. And the more you break your big goal down into individual steps, the more you achieve. And that's exactly what we do. So building the website, getting out the publicity, doing the sales, and then having the success in the end is then just a fraction, because the pathway was already filled with 100 achievements. And that's how we maintain that integrity and that willingness to learn and to redo something until it comes to that place of complete success. And that's what one of the real important lessons is, and we have plenty more. We cover so much, about learning auditorial and visual and how to find your right way, how to translate information so that you can comprehend it in the best way, how to accumulate information so that you don't have to sift through everything. There is hundreds of ways, and that's what you will learn at the EQ Academy. All right? And now we jump on tomorrow into life purpose. how to find your life purpose and how you find out why you're here on Earth.